Welcome to Phocuswright Europe. Thanks for taking a few hours out of your afternoons here this week to join us as we write the sequel. Are you Zoom fatigued? Tired of virtual events? Bored of that one-way conversation? People talking at you? Well, you're in luck this week because we are too. While we can't wait to get back together in person in November, which will occur November 15th through 17th in Southern Florida at the Phocuswright conference, we're excited to join together the European travel community. And we've integrated a lot of interactivity, collaboration, connection. We're really excited to bring together an engaging event today. So I'd first like to thank Andrew from Expedia Group Media Solutions for kicking us off and sharing some insights on traveler behavior and sentiment. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on my colleagues here, Kevin May, the editor-in-chief of Phocuswire, and Chiruta Fadnis, the SVP of Research and Product Strategy at Phocuswright, to help us frame the discussion for today. So we're not going to spend a whole lot of time looking back. I think we're ready to move beyond that phase, but we're going to spend a little bit of time sharing some stories about the last year. We'll frame the current state of the market, and then we'll look into the future and start to map out what the industry needs to do to recover. So welcome, Kevin and Chiruta.
Hey, Pete. And hello, everybody else.
Hi, Kevin.
Good to see you both. So it's been quite a roller coaster here over the last year, or, maybe not. That's not the best amusement park ride. Maybe it's been more like a scary haunted house without any exit doors. So Chiruta, as you lead the Phocuswright research team here, as you've kind of reviewed some of the the data points from the last 12 months, what's the most striking one that kind of resonates with you as you kind of reflect on what we've all been through for the last year?
Yeah, hi, Pete. And, it's great to be here with our European audience. It is a haunted house and roller coaster, actually, combined together, if I can put it that way. Our stomachs have dropped so many times during this last year or so. But talking about striking data points or, just what we've seen, there's so many. I mean, one thing that I think will, stay in our combined memories for some time to come, I think, is it's the way that travel just fell to near zero, just so quickly, so abruptly. It feels like one day we were fine and the next it was just chaos. And we saw sort of that bottom for quite a few months last year, actually. But overall, and thinking back to the history of the industry, when we look back in a few years' time, once travel resumes, and I think that's when we'll really start to kind of digest it. We'll start looking at the big picture, and I think one data point that we'll all refer back to for, I don't know, many years is just that travel spend fell by 61% in 2020. So quite a steep drop. Varies regionally, of course. In Europe, it was a slightly steeper drop than that. It was about 64%. So, that's something that we'll be looking back to and comparing to when we go forward. The good thing is we also saw acceleration in online adoption. And that's something that, we track at Phocuswright. So it's a behavioral change. It's one that we expect will stick with us for a little while.
Great. So Kevin, you've obviously reported on lots of industry stories over the last year. So maybe share with us what was the most popular story from the year. And I sense I know what that is, but once you introduce that, maybe explain why that story was the most popular.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. I mean, it's quite interesting because the most popular story on Phocuswright last year was not directly related to coronavirus, but it kind of was. So inevitably, though, Airbnb announcing that it was going to list on the public markets, which was first announced, as I say, in August and eventually listed in December, was our most popular story of the year. The reason why it's related to coronavirus, because it was only 6 weeks before that that Brian Chesky, the CEO and one of the co-founders at Airbnb, was talking in the media about how the company had been on its knees just a few months before. So it's interesting. It was the turnaround, probably the turnaround company, the turnaround story of the year, which is why I think it resonated with so many people, that they were able to actually do something that had been mooted for about 18 months, but were able to put it into play despite everything that had been going on into August up to last year, that point in that year.
Yeah, and short-term rentals really was one of the bigger stories of the past year, and that category itself really kind of gained lots of steam during the pandemic. So as we take a kind of a pause and we think about where we're at today, Chiruta, what does the data say? Where are we at into that? I always hesitate to use that word recovery, because many markets are still, facing lockdowns and we're kind of in and out of really challenging periods. What does the data say?
Well, I think you're right about kind of this up and down that we're seeing, and the recovery being pretty uneven. So today, I think I'd like to just sort of think of it as we're at a point where the industry is looking forward, and really has a lot of things to look forward to, right? There's so many factors that influence the way that travel is coming back. So we talk about vaccinations and regulations and border policies. And, just this morning, I was talking about global chip shortages and rental cars and how that's impacting that sector. But the mood is shifting. I think we can all agree on that, right? Travelers are itching to get out. We're seeing that in our data. They want to go and just get away from the four walls of their house and their local neighborhoods and parks, and they want to spend their money just seeing and experiencing the world. We talk about pent-up demand a lot, and we now know that it's real. Revenge travel seems to be I don't know the phrase of the month, but it's amazing. Just look at how bookings explode as soon as a country says we're loosening some entry barriers, some exit barriers being lifted. Bookings just go through the roof.
Yes, indeed. I think we've probably seen that phrase mentioned in Phocuswright a few times. So, Kev, what does the industry need to do to move forward based on kind of that picture of where we're at today?
I think one of the important things is still to listen to the science and not the emotion of travel. I think there is a lot of emotion from both travelers and the brands that serve them. And I think, it's been such a turbulent year that listening to the science is still the most important thing. I would also think that it's a good opportunity for those companies that have thought about the industry in the long term to actually use that opportunity to reset. There's lots of words beginning with RE that we've all been using, but to think about things in a smarter, bolder, better way, which is actually a phrase that you'll be hearing a lot more over the next 6 months at Phocuswright. But and also I think a really important one is that this is the hospitality industry. There's a lot of technology coming along, and this is obviously an opportunity for the whole industry to use the technology when it's useful, but also use the human beings that we so covet within our industry to do the thing that we do best, which is to be a hospitable industry.
Well said. So lastly, as we think about the theme for the Phocuswright Europe conference today, Chiruta, can you kind of run us through the theme and what some of the opportunities are that we've really thought about as we've developed that theme?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, look, where we are today, right? There's no question that the industry has changed. That's something that we've been thinking about here. It's time, we talked about a sequel, writing the sequel, right? It's time not just for a new chapter. We want a new book. And it's really a great opportunity for the industry. So we expect to see lots of transformation, in distribution, in the power equations within the industry. Business models will emerge. Kev talked about the technological advancement, but the synergies between that technology and the human aspect of things, that's super, super important in an industry that got hit as hard as we did in the travel industry last year. traveler experience, the pace of innovation, all of those things are going to be part of the conversation. And the industry really does have noble goals. I mean, if we think about sustainability and safer travel and, improving our products and services and better ways to get things done, ultimately, we want happier, more satisfied travelers. And all of those things that we'll explore here in the next couple of days are leading towards that.
So, Kevin, what are some of the biggest stories and model changes that we're going to see here in the next 1, 3, 5 years?
Yeah, so just a couple off the top of my head here. Then, so there's been a lot of talk about, and you referenced it at the beginning, about what's been happening with private accommodation, vacation rental. It's gone great guns in the last year or so. Things started opening up last summer. Is that growth sustainable, or will hotels kind of either get their act together or just naturally catch up, and that kind of growth that vacation rentals have been on just starts to slow? So I think that's an interesting one for us to observe. We have seen a lot of talk, and we will get a lot of talk over the next couple of days for sure, about the subscription model, something that TripAdvisor is putting a lot of strategy into. There are lots of question marks around it. It's a fairly polarizing subject. Some people think it just is something that doesn't work because travel is not a frequent purchase. So I think it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And we always talk about super apps. Now, in Southeast Asia and in the Far East, we're seeing a lot of that, where with Traveloka and what Ctrip and others are trying to do and Grab. We don't have a super app here yet in the Western Hemisphere. However, some people might argue that Google is one way there, is some way there. And we're also starting to see what Booking Holdings is trying to do by putting as much of its own product into the Booking.com app. So it's not a super app as such, but it's the connected trip and being all things to all people. So 3 important things to look out for, certainly over the next 1, 3, and 5 years.
Thanks so much, Kevin and Chiruta. The Phocuswright team will be back at the end of the day today to provide commentary and recap the conversations that happened. Now on to center stage at Phocuswright Europe.